Hello, and welcome back to the Jungle Sports Stories. Now, watching all of the hate Caitlin Clark has been receiving brings to mind another professional player who had a very similar experience in her rookie year. She was revered by the media as the WBL's saving grace, and her name was Ann Meyers. Let's take a quick look at how a basketball-loving teen out of California became public enemy number one. Her road to the WBL began in high school, where she played 7 sports: softball, badminton, field hockey, tennis, basketball, volleyball, and track and field. She was the first high school girl selected for the U.S. national team and the first to get a full athletic scholarship to UCLA. Meyers helped her college team win the AIAW National Championship in 1978. The same year, she was drafted by the Houston Angels as their number 1 pick. Well decorated before becoming a professional, athleticism just came naturally to Meyers. Her father played at Marquette, and her brother Dave Meyers won 2 national championships with UCLA and was a guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. When she found out she was drafted, she declined the offer, opting to stay in school and finish her degree. She also wanted to remain an amateur to play in the 1980 Olympics. She'd won a silver with the ladies in 1976 and wanted to go for the gold. But politics be politicking, so there was no U.S. participation that summer in 1980. Meyers pulled a move that shocked everyone when she broke another first and became the first woman to sign to an NBA team as a free agent. That's right, the Indiana Pacers invited her to try out. Now, there are some things you need to know about the Pacers of the late 1970s before we go on. See, they had big money problems. In 1977, a telethon was held to raise money to keep the franchise afloat for the season. And the following year, a group of generous local businesses didn't want to see the team fold, so they made donations to keep the Pacers going. 1979 saw a new owner take over, and his name was Sam Nassi. He needed something huge to drum up interest and draw investors to the failing franchise. So, he called Ann Meyers and asked her to try out for the Pacers. He knew it was the right time to call. Like I said, politics kept Meyers from her dream of winning the Olympic gold, and anyone with inside knowledge of the WBL knew all about its funding issues. So, Ann did what she thought was in her best interest, even though she saw the whole thing as a publicity stunt in the beginning. The Pacers vehemently denied claims that they were pulling a fast one, but no one believed them. The Times headline read, "Wrong League," and the Washington Post writer David Kindred called the move Disney Ball, because to him it was all a deluded fantasy. So how did the WBL feel about this? Well, according to reports, they were mad as hell. To the fledgling league, this was the NBA's first attempt to undermine them. See, many didn't think Ann Meyers was that good. I mean, for a girl, they thought she was decent, but owners like Steve Brown of the New Orleans Pride was pissed that of all the women players, Ann Meyers was being touted as the best woman b-ball player in the land. He went as far as to say that he bet anyone $5,000 that Ann couldn't beat a WBL player in a one-on-one shootout. He believed she was an average player who may or may not even start in the WBL. So why give her a shot in the NBA unless you're looking for press? Most owners agreed. See, about a decade earlier, there was a woman named Denise Long who was regarded by many as the best woman player of her time. She scored 111 points in one game as a high schooler in Iowa. In her senior year, Long was called into the superintendent's office to take a call from the San Francisco Warriors. See, the Warriors drafted her in the 13th round, and soon she was sitting on a couch next to Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show and shooting jumpers over Nate Thurmond in training camp. However, NBA Commissioner Walter Kennedy was able to void the draft since the league wasn't allowed to sign high school players at the time. So, it was obvious it was all done for publicity. There was also Lucia Lucy Harris, who was drafted by the Utah Jazz in 1977. Harris played for Delta State University and redefined the post player's role in women's basketball. The 6'3" baller was well known for dropping 47 at the Garden when Delta played Queens in 1976. But she declined Utah's offer. See, there was no WBL when these ladies were drafted, so there was no huge backlash when Long tried out. And there probably wouldn't have been one if Lucia said yes. But for Ann Meyers, this would not be the case. The WBL was mad at her. The media called the whole thing a joke, and feminists everywhere called her a traitor. She wasn't a woman's woman. Even the head coach of the Pacers, Bob Leonard, flew out to Cali to convince Meyers that she was making the wrong move. Meyers didn't care. She laced up her sneakers and stepped on the court in September of 1979 as the Pacers training camp started. She was determined to prove the naysayers wrong, because now even she stated she believed she was a real prospect and not just a gimmick to draw attention to the failing team. But she didn't have the size, agility, or strength to play with the men and was cut after 3 days. That's why the whole thing was viewed as nothing more than a publicity stunt. It's not just that a woman was invited to try out, but that a woman so small was chosen. At 5'9", most knew she wouldn't be able to compete with the men. Hell, there are men that height that are considered too small. As player Tonius Chavers noted, "We felt like we could have sent some big girls in there to bang with those guys for real. How is she going to try out? She isn't even tall enough." Now, something I forgot to mention is that she signed a contract for $50,000 with the Pacers. Good money in 1979. If she remained a free agent, she'd get the money. But if she signed with another team, poof, the money would be gone. This only became an issue because, well, now she wanted to sign with the WBL. If you think the ladies were pissed at her before, now they were really furious. It was clear to them that the WBL was an option only because the men rejected her, and no one likes being the second choice. She was seen as someone who thought she was better than other women, someone who thought she deserved to be on the court with men, someone who was once on the other side helping the ops take them down. Gordon Never, owner of the Minnesota Phillies, said, "She's a great basketball player in her own right, but why hasn't she promoted women's basketball? She seems more concerned with Ann Meyers than a place for women pros to play." See, the general sentiment held by most WBL players was that they were paving the way for a future involving women's professional sports. They decided that they would bear the brunt of the heartaches and growing pains pioneers are often left with, if that means their daughters, granddaughters, and nieces would have a league of their own. So they put up with horrible travel arrangements, slept 6 to a motel room, played in high school gyms, and went without pay for weeks just so future generations wouldn't have to. These ladies felt Meyers didn't have the same vision and was only out for self, and they made sure they let her know just how deep their feelings ran. Now, Meyers didn't help ingratiate herself to the ladies when she negotiated the highest WBL salary. $140,000 over 3 years was what she got when she signed with the New Jersey Gems. After Meyers was signed, Althea Gwynn, a pioneer and well-respected all-star, was quoted as saying, "Ann Meyers isn't God. I don't think she's in the top 3-4 in the league. And she's getting all this money without proving herself." See, many felt Meyers knew she had no shot at signing to the Pacers and playing in the NBA, and she knew it. But she saw an opportunity to leverage the NBA contract to get more money from the WBL, who was known for paying low salaries. This just gave the ladies another reason not to like Meyers. She was just seen as a selfish opportunist. Suzanne Digitale of the Chicago Hustle summed up her feelings when she said, "My first opinion was that she did it for the money. My second opinion is that I wouldn't do it for the money, for any amount, and that she sold our league short." In her defense, Meyers claimed she was just unsure about the stability of the WBL and was not going to turn down an opportunity with an NBA team because others thought it was a bad idea. Well, Unfortunately for Meyers, no one believed her. And Althea Gwynn was one of Meyers' more vocal haters at the time. Gwynn was certain Meyers would be on the receiving end of many elbows that season. As she said, after all, she put women down, and that's what we are. So, in many minds, it was time to put down Meyers. Years later, when interviewed, time and maturity allowed Gwynn to admit, I guess that was jealousy talking. She probably made more just for trying out with them than I made in the whole year. The Gems were undeterred, as Meyers was someone who they saw as good for promoting the league and team. Owner Robert Milo said, she is someone a lot of people will want to see because she had the guts to do what she did. She will bring excitement to the league and help other teams fill seats. She will also be a superstar, which our league needs. These are some of the same things we hear about Caitlin Clark from LeBron or Charles Barkley. Legendary basketball coach John Wooden called Meyers the one who really got women's basketball going. She was a complete player and great ball handler. The target was officially on Meyers' back. As Gems team captain Wanda Sarametta stated, when you have someone who has been labeled the best player in the league, people are always going to be after your head. And it was true. Karen Allenbacher of the Houston Angels said, my aim was to knock Annie Meyers clean off the floor. However, Allenbacher said it wasn't because of the Pacers' tryout, but because Meyers was that good. The media continued the hype around Meyers. Mel Greenberg, a writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, believed, Meyers is the woman that the Women's Professional Basketball League hopes will do for it what Joe Namath did for the American Football League. The Herald touted Meyers as the league's savior. And as the Gems franchise player, most teams' strategy against New Jersey was to swarm Meyers. After a game against the Phillies, a local sports writer wrote, the Phillies entered the contest seemingly intent on roughing up Meyers, and they were able to do so. But the media's perception on what was happening to Meyers seemed to be just that, their perception. Which begs to ask, was it the media all along? Was the WBL versus Meyers something blown completely out of proportion? I mean, the league was and still is very physical. So when Caitlin Clark is getting shoulder checked and the media zeroes in on her, it makes it seem as if she's the only one being targeted. As if Angel Reese wasn't chokeslammed to the floor. According to Wanda Sarametta, she said Meyers received a positive reception from the Gems and other players. She doesn't remember any instance when a player purposely went after Meyers. Martha Hastings, another teammate, said she never witnessed any hostility being thrown Meyers' way. Other players like Adrian Mitchell were completely unbothered. Mitchell said, I would have done the same thing, and so would most of the other players in the league. I don't think I could make an NBA team, but for $50,000, I'd sure try. So is the media really to blame for all of this? I mean, they are the common denominator in each instance, and they are using the same narratives that worked more than 40 years ago. I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it. One of the goals of a fair and impartial media outlet is to dispense the facts on both sides and allow the public to draw their own conclusions. But the rules changed, and both sides of an issue are no longer required to be represented. The media is allowed to paint one-sided narratives without the opposition there to correct misinterpretations or point out fallacies in the argument. It's an aggressive media strategy that sells more papers, magazines, gains higher ratings for broadcast news shows, and gets more clicks. And certainly divisive topics like race, gender, and sexuality are always easy bait. There's no doubt that there are a few people who don't think Caitlin Clark is all that and feel it's their duty to humble her. But is it fair to represent them as the majority, the same way it was done to Ann Meyers? We have to be knowledgeable of the past in order to navigate our present and future. This, to me, is history simply repeating itself. How the public handles it will dictate whether or not it becomes an issue again. The Jungle.